not see that coming. The Sprite World is a great dungeon. It's fairly balanced and it's relatively easy for new or unmaxed players to complete. The rushing of the dungeon is pretty easy, even if you have no defense. The boss has predictable patterns that are easy to pick up, and you can even cheese them if you have a wizard or a St. Abraham's. It's a relatively safe and easy way to max an attack-based stat. But here's where I struggle. I have a pet that paralyzes, and usually it's great. I can use it in tandem with the trickster to paralyze bosses so I can aim better. It's a bit of a skill shot and it takes some practice, but it makes me feel like I'm playing my part of the team when I manage it in groups, especially when we don't have an archer. Paralyze is a great thing on pets, but it's the most hardcore double-edged sword I've ever seen. I've died like this to the Sprite Goddess many times before, and each time I think to myself one of two things. The first is, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible player. How could I fall for a beginner's trap like that? And the second is, man, they've got to do something about that. And it's never in anger that I respond like this. I've known the Sprite Goddess could pop you since the very first time I went in there ages ago. But it always makes me feel like I'm dafter than a sponge. I love the Sprite World, don't get me wrong, but it's moments like these that make me remember that I also really hate the Sprite World. The Paralyzed Burst is a good way to scare or counter divine characters, but it's also difficult for players like me who are not actually good at the game to counter that counter. I don't think the solution is to nerf the burst, and I'm honestly not even sure if there should be a greater delay in the activation of the burst. The Paralyzed Burst logistically makes sense. It's a great way to balance the dungeon and add a scare factor and a sense of danger for even maxed players. I'm not suggesting that there be a whole second delay after the activation of the burst, but maybe instead there could be like a 2-second Paralyze immunity after coming out of Paralyze, just to keep the Sprite Goddess from lunging at you and then popping you before you can even respond. Anyway, this video is not what it originally was supposed to be, but all's well that ends well. So those are my thoughts on the Sprite World. If you have any thoughts on this subject, feel free to comment below. I love to hear other people's input on matters that matter. So with that in mind, I will take my leave. So until I see you in the field, happy hunting!